Today, I'm pulling out my canner. And I am going to be making a meal in a jar. I really wish there were more jar meals, if I can call them that are like safe recipes. Because there's nothing more convenient than just opening up a jar and having a complete meal in a jar. But that's what we're going to be doing today. So today I'm going to be making chicken curry. Look at all these fresh ingredients that goes into making this dish or this meal in a jar. And as long as my voice holds out, it is a little hoarse, we are going to get through this. So bear with me. And let's get started. It's really simple to do. All you need is these fresh ingredients and of course some chicken, and that's all you've got. Everything goes in one jar, no need to cook anything. Everything will be cooking in the pressure canner. So let's get going. So to a large bowl, you're going to add 4 pounds of chicken cut up into about 2-inch squares, 2 cups of diced onion, 2 cups of diced tomatoes, 1 cup of raisins, 2 cups of diced potatoes. And the raisins, I use the golden raisins, just figured it would look better with the chicken once it was cooked. And I'm going to start by giving all this a good stir. Start incorporating these ingredients together. And now I'm going to add on the rest of the ingredients. 8 tablespoons of tomato paste, 4 teaspoons of pickling salt, 2 teaspoons of curry powder, and 2 teaspoons of garam masala. This smells so good. My husband was asking me what I was making, and I just had the spices laid out. Again, let's give this a good stir, making sure everything is evenly distributed. And this is what it looks like, all nicely mixed together. So when I tell you this is an easy recipe, I am not lying. That is it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place this in our jars. We're going to tightly pack our chicken inside of our jars, and we're going to backfill our jars with some broth. You're not going to need a lot of broth because you're really packing your chicken in tight to the jar. And you're just going to be putting maybe a few tablespoons in, maybe a 1/4 cup in of broth inside of your jars. So let's get that going. I am pulling out my warm jars from my dishwasher. This should make me around 8 jars. I also have my canner warming up on the stovetop already. So we are going to, I'm using pint-sized jars. You can also use quart-sized jars. You have to do a minimum of 4 jars when you're pressure canning. So if you wanted to do a little bit less, you can, but you always have to make sure that you have 4 pint-sized jars in your canner. If you prefer using the larger 1-quart jar, then you can use 2 of those. So I'm really getting this packed in tight. You want to leave 1-inch headspace. And now I'm going to backfill with the broth. I'm just going to add in a little bit at a time and use the debubbler to help the liquid get down to the bottom of the jar. You don't want any air pockets in there. You really want to let this go down. And then you readjust your liquid as needed to have 1-inch headspace. Once you've filled your jar, you're going to take some white vinegar to wipe off your rim. The vinegar helps break up the fat and ensure that you get a proper seal for your jars. Always use a new cap. Don't reuse these caps. Make sure that they're clean. You don't have to boil them or heat them up anymore. Just make sure they're clean. And always, as usual, your rings go on fingertip tight. I'm going to transfer this over to the canner and we're going to fill up the rest of the jars. I've ended up with 7 jars of the chicken curry. Just to give you an idea of how much broth I used, this is a 2-liter jar, so 4 cups of chicken broth, and I haven't even gone through half. So I haven't even used 2 cups of broth for 7 jars. So like I say, it's just a few tablespoons per jar as you're backfilling and removing the bubbles from inside the jar. Now, we are going to turn the heat up on our canner, put this on high, and we are going to seal our canner. Be sure to use the instructions that come. There are lots of different pressure canners available, different brands. So just make sure to follow the instructions that came with your pressure canner. So we're going to seal this lid and we're going to bring this up to temperature. I've run into some audio issues, so I will be doing some voiceovers. So what I'm explaining is we need to bring our pot up to temperature to get a steady stream of steam and to time that 10 minutes. The pressure canner is warming up, but we're still waiting for this button to come up. But it's getting close. As you can see, we have a lot of steam coming out of the vent, but we need a steady stream of steam, and this needs to come up before we can start timing to vent our pot. The pot has vented for 10 minutes, and it's time to add the weighted gauge. This one here is 10 pounds of pressure, but because I have a dial gauge, I can add 11 pounds of pressure. My altitude is sea level. Be sure to find out the altitude that you are at to make sure that you're canning at the correct pressure. So once your canner is getting close to the desired pressure, you want to slowly reduce the heat so it doesn't go too high. You don't want it to boil out of control. You want to continue reducing the heat, keeping the pressure at the correct position throughout the entire canning process. You only start timing when you have reached the correct pressure. If you lower the heat too quickly and the pressure drops below 11 pounds of pressure, in my case, you must restart the processing time from 0. Pint-sized jars need to can for 75 minutes and quart-sized jars for 90 minutes. Never leave your canner unattended. You must keep an eye on the pressure for the entire processing time. You'll probably be lowering the heat for the first 15 to 20 minutes of your processing time. The time is up. So it's time to turn the heat off your stove. Now very carefully, if you can, move the canner to a cool section of your stovetop. If you can't, if it's too heavy, leave it where it is. It'll still cool down. It might just take a little bit longer. Now we need to let the canner sit for a while. The dial must go down to 0 and the button needs to drop. After that, we can remove the weighted gauge. So once we remove the weighted gauge, you still need to wait another 10 minutes before you can remove the cover. It's important to let this process happen naturally. If you try to force it to cool down quicker, it can affect the end product. It could cause some siphoning in your jars or just not have quite as good of an end result. The dial has gone down to 0 and the button has dropped. It's now time to remove the gauge. But we still have to wait another 10 minutes before opening the canner. We still have to learn to be patient. So it's time to open the canner, not quite time to take the jars out yet. So you want to carefully remove the cover from your canner. Always remove it by flipping the cover away from your face so all the steam doesn't go in your face and cause burns. The jars need to sit in the canner for another 10 minutes before you can take them out. And now back to our original audio. Everything is done. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna pop one of these babies open right now because I want to taste, and I'm hungry too. I wasn't quite sure what to serve this with. I debated on making some rice. Oh, that one was sealed nice. And I settled on some sourdough naan bread that I had already prepared. So that's the winner. That's what I'm going to taste this with. It's hot. Down the hatch. Really tasty. Really nice flavor. It's very mild, not too spicy. You could probably increase the amounts of spices that are in there, if you like it a little more flavorful or if you like it hotter, but I find it's really good. What you could do, since there is quite a bit of liquid, is that you could put this on the stove top and add either some flour or some cornstarch and thick it to make a real nice, thick, saucy chicken curry. And there's enough liquid in these jars to actually make that work. So that's another option that you can do with this as well. So I do hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy my content. If you do, don't be shy. Give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, and be sure to check back again soon to see what other content I will have coming out.